Hey there. If you have gotten to this point, then that means you finished your warm-up. So we're going to go ahead and go over it and see how you did. Please go through and check it. So the first one, number one, you had to put the scientific notation in order from greatest to least. Okay, there's two ways you can do this. You can kind of eyeball it by looking at each one. Okay, you look at each one, and when you do, and all of them have the same exact decimals times the 10th power, but they're all in different order. So when you look at it, you can see every single one of them has the decimal point in the same place. So there's 7 holes in every single one of them. Okay, so since we see that, we can now just kind of look at it. So we know to the 4th power is going to be bigger than anything on the 3rd power. So which one has the 4th power showing? And there's only one of them that does, which is D. So you can just use process of elimination and answer D. If it's different and if it's a little bit harder, another way you can do it to make sure that you get it correct is to go ahead and line up all of them and then change it to standard form. So you can see I changed every one of these to standard form. Now if you notice, the new decimals are not lined up. And in order to compare decimals, you have to line up your decimals. So let's go ahead and line them up with the decimals all in the same row. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So the first one is 76,000. So I'm just going to kind of work backwards so I don't miss any. I'm putting my digits in a separate box so I can line them up neatly. All right, so I did that one. Then I'm going to do this one, which is 7,610. And then the third one is 76,010. And then the fourth one, it is. All right, so now remember, what do we put in these blank spaces? Well, we can put zeros. We can fill zeros in any of these blank spaces. So then when we go to compare, we look at the first row. And we can see that the 7s are the largest. All right, but we can't tell from that row with the 7s, so we have to go to the second one. Well, when you look at the second one, and we're only looking at these two, when you look at the second row and just those two, you have a 6 and a 6. Well, we can't compare those 6s, so we need to go to the next row. Those are zeros. Can't tell from there. So we go to the next column, not row, column. And we can see that the 1 is larger than 0. So this is going to be the largest. I'm going to put a 1. I'm going to scratch that out because I no longer need to use that one. Then we go back to the first column, and now we see that 7 is bigger than these zeros. So that's definitely the second largest. We're going to scratch that one out. So now all we're looking at now is this one and this one. So we can't tell from the first row because they're both zeros. Now when we look at the second row, we can't tell because those are both 7s. Then we look at the third row and we can see the 6 is larger than 0. So this would be the third largest. And finally, this one would be the smallest. So now we have to go back up here and see which one. This was second. So it goes second, third, first, and fourth. So then you use your scratch paper and you can go in and go back and see that the ones that are in order is actually D. Okay? All right, number 2. All right, scientific notation. So remember, when we have a number times 10 to whatever power, don't forget we have to take this number and we have to place that decimal point behind the first digit that is not a 0. And now all we do is count our decimal place. So we are going to write 1.83 times 10 to the what power. So on a whole number, the decimal point is always going to be at the end. So now we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is to the 6th power. Now I notice a lot of people are putting the 4th power because there's 4 zeros, but that's not the case. You have to count how many places you're moving the decimal point. All right, number 3, here we have powers of 10. So we have 10 to the negative 3rd, which is the same thing as saying 1/10 times 1/10 times 1/10. And then when you multiply all that together, 1 times 1 times 1, because when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And then 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. You have 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And then you add 3 zeros. So this is basically what your answer is. And then finally, as a decimal, how do you write 1,000th? Okay, just you need to make sure you know that this is the 10th place. This is the 100th place. And this is the 1,000th place. Or you can go the easy way and you see 3 zeros. So let's throw in our decimal point. Put in 3 blanks. 1, 2, 3. The very first column over here on the right gets a 1, and you fill in the other zeros. And this is 1,000th. Got it? All right, let's look at numbers 4, 5, and 6. All right, these are square roots. So what's the square root of 36? What times what is 36? 6. The square root of 121, we know that 11 times 11 is 121. Therefore, the square root of 121 is 11. Now we have a bigger number here. We have 289. So think to yourself, all right, that is a pretty big number. So you definitely know it's going to be pretty much bigger than 11. Okay. Another thing you want to think about is it's an odd number. So since it's an odd number, then your square root is going to be an odd number. So if you know what 12 times 12 is, so you think that way. So we can look at, we know that it could be, what? It could possibly be 13, 15, 17, or 19. So we just narrowed it down to 4 of them. Now, when you multiply 13 times 13, of course, you look at the 3 times 3, it ends in a 9. So that is definitely a possibility. When you do 15 times 15, 5 times 5 is 25. That ends in a 5. It can't be that. Then if you multiply 17 times 17, 7 times 7 is 49. Oh, that's a possibility too. So it could be this one. And then when you do 19 times 19, 9 times 9 is 81, which ends in a 1, and it cannot be that. So now you have at least one of 2. So then you just, on your scratch paper, you do 13 times 13. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. Bring down your 0 to fill in the 1's place. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. And we get 169. That's not it, is it? So the only other option is 17. So 17 is your answer. But we can check it. 17 times 17. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 1 is 7. Plus 4 is 11. Fill in our 0 in the 1's place. 1 times 7 is 7, and 1 times 1 is 1. And now when we add these, we get 9, 8, 2. There's our answer. But if you have it memorized, you don't need to do all this. All right, I'm going to erase all this. Room over here. All right, and finally the last part, well, not the last part, true or false. So in our last lesson, we learned how to change a percent to a fraction. So we know that 83% is 83, 83 out of 100. That is exactly the same as that. Therefore, they're equal, and 83% is not greater than 83 hundredths. So this statement is false. All right, so now we come here to the number 8. We have 0.96. But in order for us to compare, we have to change this to our decimal form. So if we have 9.6 and we're moving the decimal point, let's start to see. Let me pause this for a second. All right, so this is 9.6 times 10 to the first power. So we're moving our decimal point one place, which is 96. So is 0.96 bigger than 96? No. Therefore, it is false also. And now we go to number 9. 3/5 is greater than 3%, is it? Now remember, when we converted our fraction to a percent, remember a percent is always out of 100. We did this in our last class when we did showed those videos or whatever. All right, so 5 times what is 100? We know that it's 20, and since we multiply 20 to the denominator, we also have to multiply 20 to the numerator, and we get 60. So 60 100ths equals 60%. 60% is greater than 3%, therefore it is a true statement. Finally, the last one is on absolute value. What is the absolute value of -6? Well, the absolute value of -6 is 6 plus, what's the absolute value of 4? 4, and you add them together, and we get 10. So 10 is your answer. All right, so if you have any questions and you don't know how to do any of this, you need to make sure to let me know, because you're going to have a test on all of this next week.